Hello, everyone. Welcome to the recording of our hot honey pepperoni pizza pasta salad class that was supposed to happen last weekend. I'm just gonna go through the recipe here as if I would during class, so then that way you guys can use this as a resource to follow along and make the recipe if needed. I cooked the pasta. So technically this is steps 1 through 3. I've cooked my pasta according to package directions. I drained it and then I put it in a bowl and I just drizzled it with a little bit of olive oil so that it didn't stick. I used this new Goodles pasta. It has some extra protein in it, so that would be an easy way to add a little more protein to the recipe. And I like this pasta because it tastes very similar to normal pasta. I've found that like chickpea pasta and other alternatives tend to have a different taste and texture. So I really like that one. I also am currently making a half recipe because I will not be able to finish a full recipe. So I will go through both measurements throughout the recording just in case. So this is a half box of pasta that I've cooked. So now we're going to go on to step 4. So we're going to have cherry tomatoes. The recipe calls for a cup, so I'm going to do a half cup since I'm halving the recipe. So let me grab my It is kind of tricky sometimes to measure things like this. So that's have oops, tomato in there. Okay. Because you see like filling up a half cup with tomatoes, it kind of fills up quickly. So it's like a mix of eyeballing and measuring. So I'll start with this much. And then this is a really easy recipe where you can always add more. So I'm just halving them here, right down the middle. Some of them are a little long. In order to keep everything kind of the same size, I'm going to cut those in quarters. This one's a little long too. Oh, actually, I like the quarter. So I'm going to quarter them. Totally not needed at all. But based on the size, I'm looking at my pasta shape now, and that's a little more similar. So I'm just going to do that. Because I like when I have things like pasta salad or even regular salad, I like when my ingredients are all kind of the same size. That way you can kind of pick up everything on your fork. But again, it's completely not necessary. You can definitely just have them. Or, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could also leave them whole. But if you're like me and like things to be of all similar size, I think this is a really good size for the pasta shape that I used, which is kind of like an elbow, but not. Okay, so I'm just gonna put these into another bowl that I have on the side. And now we're going to do the same thing with the mozzarella balls. That also calls for a cup, so I'm gonna do a half cup for those as well. And I think I'm probably gonna end up ordering those too, just because the mozzarella balls and the tomatoes are pretty much the same size. I do know they also make or sell ones that are called pearls, which are cute and small, so those would be a good option too. So I just drained that. Just gonna fill up my measuring cup. Gonna do the same thing here and like eyeball it. Gonna be overflowing, but also who doesn't love a little extra mozzarella? Okay, so I'm gonna do that. Oh, I lost one, so I'm gonna add one more. And then just gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing. Quarter those. I'm just gonna add that to the same bowl with the tomatoes. All right, and then I believe, let me just double check. I think next is to start working on the dressing. Okay, yep. So I'm gonna get a liquid measuring cup. With things like salad dressing, I love making it in the measuring cup because it's pretty easy to at least measure the first ingredient, which is usually the heaviest, like the most amount. Like for example, the olive oil, we have a half cup of olive oil, so I like just measuring that right into the cup. And then obviously the rest, you could kind of eyeball it and continue to add on top. Oh, out. Okay, so I have my liquid measuring cup here. I'm gonna do a half cup of olive oil. Actually, I lied. I'm gonna do a fourth cup because I'm halving the recipe. So normally you would do a half cup. I just did a fourth cup. And then we have a third cup of white wine vinegar. I don't know what half of that is right off the top of my head. So since I'm already using my liquid measuring cup, dry measuring cups are not completely accurate when it comes to liquid ingredients, but it's better than nothing. So this is something that I do sometimes either if I have a lot of dirty dishes or if I'm already using this and just don't want to dirty another one. So it's a little bit of a hack, I guess you could say, but with something like this, with salad dressing, it's not a big deal because it's to taste and the measurements aren't extremely important. For something like baking, I would never measure liquid in a dry cup. But so what I'm doing is I have my third cup measuring cup, and I'm just kind of going halfway, which is also eyeballing it, but we can always adjust it. So that was half of a third of a cup of white wine vinegar. And then we'll need a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. The one I'm using right now isn't like labeled Italian seasoning. It's labeled, one I'll show you. When I get this off. There we go. Called Aglio Olio seasoning from Trader Joe's. I really like it. Got some garlic, some herbs, some red pepper. Let's see. Minced garlic, sea salt flakes, parsley, red bell pepper, red chili pepper, and safflower oil. So I like to use that. So I'm gonna do a tablespoon of that, and I'm just gonna measure it right over, or I keep forgetting, I need to do a half tablespoon. But if you're making the full recipe, do a tablespoon. Actually, instead of dirtying another one, I'm just gonna do, that's about half. Salt and pepper to taste. Since there's salt in there, I'm just gonna do a little bit of pepper. Should be good. And then next is one of my favorite ingredients, Calabrian chilies, which is a really, really good chili paste from Italy, but completely optional if you don't like spice. Just clean that extra up. So that is a tablespoon. So I'm going to do another half that. I'm actually going to measure half tablespoon because it can get kind of spicy. And this you can always change the amount of too. Like if you like spice, but you don't like super spicy, you can always decrease the amount of it if you still want to put it in, but not go super crazy. So it calls for a tablespoon. I just halved it into a half tablespoon. You can do that to taste or omit it, whatever works best for what you like. Get this on. Okay. And then lastly, we have a half tablespoon of honey. This one I'm doing again in the 1 tablespoon and just eyeballing it. It's good. Just gonna take my little spatula and get all the rest out. Perfect. Okay, so next we need a clove of garlic. So you can either crush or press that right into, or press or grate rather, right into the cup of dressing. So let me just get a clove out. And this I probably will still end up doing the whole clove just because I do like garlic. So an easy way to take off all this skin, especially if you were going to be crushing it anyway and you don't need it to stay together, you put your garlic clove on the cutting board and take the flat end of your knife and then carefully using like the heel of your palm, press down. And it kind of crushes it and then the skin just like comes off like magic. And just peels away. So that's a really easy way to get the peel off in like a couple pieces. Then I'm just gonna cut off. I have a little icky end and then the root end. And then I have a microplane that I'll use, so I'll just place that right over the dressing and just grate the clove. Make sure to be careful of your fingers too. If you happen to have a jar of like pre-minced garlic, usually about a tablespoon is equal to a clove. Right. I'm gonna do that much. Just because I don't want to get my fingers caught. And then make sure you tap it all out and get any excess off so you don't lose all that good garlic. The inside of a grater or a microplane is safe to touch, so you can always get the inside out. And then just rinsing that off quickly, because one of the most interesting parts of this dressing is that we are grating a tomato. So it's like we're getting the tomato flavor, but without using a sauce, um, or anything like that. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna cut an end off just so that we can like get through that first layer of skin pretty easy. And my microplane's kind of small, so I don't know. I'm gonna try it out. The recipe, I believe, calls for, let me look, aroma tomatoes specifically. So those are the oval kind of shaped tomatoes. They're a little bit smaller. The store was out when I went, so I just got a regular like slicing tomato you can see here. So that you could use too, which is what I'm gonna try. And I'm gonna do half, obviously, since I'm halving the recipe. This is actually working pretty well. So I'm just grating it. If you have a box grater, you can use that too. I have that also. I just don't necessarily feel like dirtying it right now. So I'll just go halfway. So by doing this, it's almost like we're juicing our tomato without using a juicer or getting tomato juice. Guess that could be a good substitute too. Right. Almost there. All right. I've pretty much got half of my tomato now, so just gonna get out the excess. And then we just want to whisk that together. If you don't want any pieces of anything, you could also blend it. Which I'm thinking I might try. Just to make it a little more cohesive. Okay, I am gonna try that. So let me just get a blender. Oh, just gonna pour that right in my blender cup. If you have an immersion blender, you can do that too. Just gonna blend that up really quick. And it's still kind of, it's not perfectly smooth, but I do like the way that that turned out. So now it just kind of looks like a nice orange mixture. So we're just going to put that to the side for right now while we finish up on the salad. Just going to clean everything out of the way really quick. I'm going to slice this end off to make it clean. Perfect. Okay, so now we just want to have everything ready. So we're going to put everything into our bowl with our pasta, because that one's a little bit of a bigger bowl. So we're going to add our mozzarella and tomatoes right to the bowl. Our dressing that we just mixed together. I'm going to start with a little, I don't want it to be sopping in dressing. And then we're also going to add our pepperoni. I opted for, in order to add even more protein, some turkey pepperoni, which just has lower fat, higher protein. So it's another good way to add some more protein to this recipe. And then what I also did, I cut it into pieces and then I air fried them at 400 degrees for like 10 or so minutes. So now they're kind of crispy. So it'll add some nice texture to the salad. And then we're just going to want to stir that together to combine it all. Yeah, that's a good amount of dressing. I don't want it to be like too wet and get soggy in the fridge. Although it should hold up pretty well, like any traditional pasta salad would. All right. Now, last step, just gonna add some basil. I'm gonna rip off a couple leaves. One of the best things about basil is that it's really easy to tear with your hand. So like I had put in the recipe, I said to tear it on top. I'm gonna teach you guys, I think I have done this before in a class, but I'm gonna do it again. A little trick to get a cool cut of basil, but if you are done with your knife and don't want to use it anymore, that's totally fine. You can tear it into the salad. This cut that I'm going to teach you is called a chiffonade, and it gives us really nice ribbons. So you're going to take your leaves and kind of lay them on top of each other. Doesn't have to be perfect. I try and keep them in size order so they stay, or as close to size order as possible. So now I have my little pile of basil leaves. I'm going to roll it up like I'm rolling up a piece of paper. And then using your rocking motion, you just go back and forth on the log, I guess you could call it, of basil. And then once you're done cutting, you have these really pretty ribbons. And I'm just gonna roughly chop them too, so they're not super long. But normally I do like to leave them long, but since I'm trying to achieve similar sizing of everything, I'm gonna just do that really quick. And then I'm just gonna put that right into our salad. And then we're just gonna mix it together one more time. And that is pretty much it. You can add some, like the recipes picture, you can add some pulled burrata. You can take a burrata ball and pull it apart and place it on top before eating and drizzle with some hot honey. I opted out of the burrata since I'm not gonna really be serving it. I'm just gonna kind of be eating this from my fridge. But if you're serving this, that's a great way to top it. And you can add some of your fresh basil chiffonade on there as well. And then, of course, the hot honey, which they do sell on its own too, instead of mixing like the Calabrian chilies with the honey. But um, I usually like the Mike's Hot Honey. That's the one I'll get. So that's really good to drizzle on top as well, or even some regular honey. But so we have our pasta salad. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Thanks for following along, and I will see you all soon. Bye.